Well, before I say anything further, I should mention that I don't actually feel as a theorist of personality and as a content creator in the personality community. I don't feel particularly misunderstood. I feel misunderstood to some degree, but it's honestly not like I spend every day of the week thinking, oh God, like, I'm so misunderstood. I wish things were otherwise. It's not the case. I think that I have a following, and it shows by itself that there are lots of people who appreciate my work and people who are not necessarily INFJs, even though like the vast bulk of my content is about INFJs and NI dominance. So the fact that there are people who are not these types who appreciate my work also shows that I can be appreciated by people from all different type families. That being said, I was asked recently, if there were issues with Jungian existentialism, which is the name of my approach, that I haven't quite resolved yet. And I thought about that, and I don't know if I would call them issues, but they are to some extent sources of misunderstanding that deserve being clarified a little bit. So if I had to focus on one such salient area of misunderstanding that I do come across, not all the time, but regularly enough in the comments to my YouTube videos, is that people will come and say, sure, like, I broadly agree with what you're saying, but how is that specifically an INFJ experience? I'm an ENTP and I experienced that. Or I'm whatever other type and I experienced that. So what you seem to be saying, Ren, is not, at least, at first sight, might not be a specific INFJ thing. And so how do you explain that? All right, so that kind of comment I do get, and it does come from a certain level of misunderstanding of my approach to theory. If you have read The Infinite Soul, which is my latest book on the INFJ, right? INFJ Life in the Modern World, you will know that the first chapter of this book, which you can get at the first link below, by the way, if you're interested, is about the infinite attitude to type, the infinite soul being a soul that consists in seeing its potential through reinvention and redescription and kind of blurring the boundaries between the different types. Not because I think that blurring the boundaries between the different types is a good thing in itself, but because I think that most of our personality models are centered around rigidly turning types into silos and focusing on properties and qualities that certain types have that other types don't have. And the differences are what defines particular types. So if I'm of that type, if I'm an INFJ, I will have certain qualities that ENTPs don't have. If I'm an ESFJ, I will have certain qualities that ISFPs don't have, and so forth and so on. Now, that's what I call the restrictive attitude to type, and that's not the approach that I take. If I had to summarize it in a couple of sentences, what I would say is my approach, Jungian existentialism, starts from the assumption we're all human beings, and we are human beings in the world. We exist in the world, and the greatest benefit we can derive from an understanding of our type is really in terms of our possibilities, and not in terms of what rigidly designates us as being of this type and not another type. So if you like, my books are about the INFJ personality only really insofar as they provide an INFJ vocabulary for an experience that, although it is an experience through the prism of the INFJ personality, is still a human experience and therefore a universal experience. So it's true, it's certainly true that most of the things that I write about could be given a pretty convincing translation into an ENTP vocabulary, or an ESFJ vocabulary, or an ISTJ vocabulary, or an ISTP vocabulary. It doesn't matter, because what I'm describing is not the experience of the INFJ as this unique type that's different from all other types. It's much better to describe my approach as saying my books are about the human experience seen through INFJ eyes. But it's still the human experience we're talking about. You know, when I talk about alienation, when I talk about haziness, when I talk about severance, when I talk about islands of spirit, spiritualization, I mean, these are INFJ experiences, but they resemble ENTP experiences. They resemble ESTJ experiences. They're not the same, but they resemble these other experiences, because at the end of the day, we're all human having experiences in the world. So of course, what we have in common is always going to be a lot more than what distinguishes us. And that's another issue with the restrictive attitude to type, with type seeing, you know, different personality types as rigid silos of categories. That's just not the human experience, and it leads to all sorts of distorted understandings. So again, what I do is talk about the human experience. That's why people relate to my books on the INFJ, even when they're not INFJ. Is because they can see that ultimately what I'm touching on is a human thing. It's a universal phenomenon. It's just given an INFJ vocabulary, because I'm an INFJ, using the best possible transcription of my experience to relate a universal issue. Okay, so let me know in the comments if you understand what I'm saying here, maybe to clear up some misunderstandings. Give me a like if you enjoyed the video. There's another book, the prequel to the Infinite Soul, which you probably would be interested in as well, is the Ecstatic Soul, and you look at the INFJ personality. My first book on the INFJ put my name on the map, and that's to this day the deepest investigation, the deepest look at the INFJ mind that you'll find anywhere. The link is below as well for your interest, guys. And as usual, don't forget that the lifeblood of my channel, I could not do it without you, is my Patreon page. Please consider supporting me on Patreon. The link below to my page in the description box. You get access as perks to our Discord server, the Fourfold, where you can interact with me and the others there on an everyday basis, as well as get access to bonus videos by me on a topic of your choosing every 2-3 weeks called the Deep Dives. If that is of interest, please consider supporting me on Patreon for a small amount. It helps me massively. And I'll talk to you soon, guys. Bye-bye.